G'day, listeners. This episode is proudly brought to you by our major sponsor, supshq.com.au. Use code BENS15 at checkout to receive 15% off on your next purchase. G'day, guys and girls. Welcome back to another episode of the Matter Mentality podcast as we are exploring more of what Matter Athletica is, who I am, what we do. This episode is going to be all about the other elements, the three other elements of the Matter mentality that we are building when it comes to the business and how we operate as a system. Just want you guys to have more of an informed or understanding approach as to how we do things and what makes us so different. So, we've already talked about training. We've already talked about nutrition. We've talked about motivation. For next, we're going to dive a bit more into how I use psychology, how I use mindset, how I use education and community to try and build a system that gets results, that gets people included, that gets people moving, that gets people progressing, and it enables them to get to the results that we're trying to achieve. Now, it's very common, and it's not going to dig at anyone, it's going to attack anyone, but a lot of the time people seem to think that training nutrition or programming nutrition, physiology nutrition is the only concepts to think about when it comes to our overall coaching experience, our programming experience, things like that. And that's fine. It is a large part of it. However, what we know in psychology and what we know in general health is that the psychosomatic relationship is not mutually exclusive. That means the mind and the body, the brain and the body, the psychology and the body are interlooped and interconnected in ways that go beyond just simply saying, I have a goal and I want to achieve something, or I had a thought, I had an action, I went and did it. That is not enough to discuss really how the psychology and how consciousness works, how the mind works, and what we're capable of. What people get wrong is that they will use the perspective, and this is, again, not to attack anyone, but a coach may just simply look at, hey, I prescribed you this meal plan, I prescribed you this training, I prescribed you this program, prescribed you these macros. Why didn't you stick to them? The thing is that people are all very, very, very complex and individualized and arbitrarily have very different lifestyles, experiences, histories, pasts, traumas, life events, circumstances, triggers, training histories, coaching histories, all these things, personality traits, all these things are combined to make them who they are. And that is why when we're really trying to push someone to go to that next level, we're really trying to get someone beyond the point of average, or trying to get someone beyond the point of the physique or lifestyle they've already had or been living. It needs to be more than what they've already done. It needs to be more than what they've already been told. It needs to be more than what they've already been given. And that comes from a place of understanding psychology and understanding their mindset and understanding who they are mentally, because that is going to have a big impact on the results that they get, the drive that they have, the ambition they have, the ability to commit to things that they have. If you're unable to connect someone mentally to the goal, emotionally to the goal, as well as physiologically, we are going to struggle to get the outcome we're trying to achieve. Now, everyone is great at saying they want something the first 2 weeks. Commitment and developing motivation, long-term intrinsic motivation, is about being able to do the thing that you want long after the mood you're in when you set it. And if you are able to spend the first 2 weeks, the first week saying how badly you want it, it's all going well and you're killing it and that's great, and then all of a sudden it drops off, we need to be able to understand psychologically why that's happening. What have I not asked? What are we missing? What's the conversation that's not understood here? How can I empower you to get the skills to progress and do the things we're trying to do? Now, if I just simply bark orders at a client or bark orders at someone and say that, hey, I gave you this meal plan, I gave you these macros, why aren't you sticking to it? That is not going to incentivize them, incite them. It's not going to be motivating them. It's going to be helping them, something coaching them to progress more towards the goal that they have. We have to be able to understand the person, understand the client, understand their mind, and be able to help reappraise, help rephrase, help reconverse, help reignite the motivation to get to the outcome we're trying to build. And that is why psychology, as my major at the moment in behavioral science, is clinical psychology. The courses and extracurriculars that I'm doing and certified in include psychology, commitment therapies, and things of that nature, motivational language and interviewing. All these things are going to impact the result the client gets, not just in the short term, but in the long term. So we are not looking at building a single physique once off to take your money and say, hey, great, I got you shredded. Now see you later. Here's a bunch of eating disorders, body image issues, and overconsumption, binging, stuff like that, because I didn't teach you any skills. The difference between coaching skills, coaching lifelong changes, coaching lifelong results, and simply giving a program is just that. It's the difference between dictating and educating, dictating and coaching. I can give you a program, I can give you a meal plan and say, see you later. That's great. That's easy. That's nothing. If you stick to it, fantastic. You might get 6 weeks out, you might get 12 weeks out, you might get shredded. But if you're unable to sustain this, or you haven't explored mentally how you feel around food, how you feel around intensity, how you feel around training, how you feel around life, how you manage stress, how you deal with trauma, how you deal with psychological hangups and problems, then the likelihood of you, breaking out of this diet, binging, over-consuming food, backing out of that diet in terrible fashion, developing poor relationships or poor understandings of what training and bodybuilding and physique development and lifestyle progressions actually have the capacity to do, then we're gonna ruin the person individually, and we're going to ruin their perception of what these great things, these great experiences, and these great goals can actually do for us in a positive fashion. So for me, understanding the human psychology is just as important as understanding nutritional science, training and programming sciences, physiology, anatomy, all those things. Obviously, there are going to be field specialists that disagree. That's fine. They're allowed to do that. But no one's mind or psychology is separate to their body. It doesn't exist that way. It doesn't work that way. The psychosomatic relationship doesn't exist that way. So understanding someone's psychology, how to coach them through things, how to teach them things, how to help them things, how to develop self-determination, how to develop intrinsic motivation, as we talked about in the first week, is going to help them sustain the goals, develop competence, develop autonomy, be able to progress these things themselves. And that is part and parcel of why I find psychology so important in coaching people, whether that be now when we're in physique development and lifestyle development and overall physical health progression, or whether it be in the future when we're working with elite athletes, we're working with high performers, we're working with business CEOs, elite athletes, whatever the jazz may be. Understanding this relationship is not separate based on the population of client. Now, the way they think may be very different and will require different tools, but the overall concept still applies and still the same. We need to be able to understand the person from the psychological perspective, because there's going to be many things that are very different for each person. Someone may come to you with a desire to get absolutely shredded with an absolutely horrible history of eating and understanding nutrition, having psychological hangups from childhood around food and how they used to consume it, being broke and what they used to store food for, how they used to gouge themselves when they finally got a paycheck and they would eat and overconsume food. That makes a very different client than to someone who has a pretty balanced history and life was a normal, have a pretty sturdy income as a middle-class family and things were all sweet. There were always food on the table and there's always food in their stomach. Like, that's going to be a very different conversation, very different client than the former, and how you coach them through these experiences and the way you teach them, the way you educate them is going to be very different. Now, we can try and push everyone to be an elite athlete or be an elite performer or high performer or high goal achiever. That isn't wrong. It's not bad. But if we don't set them up in a way that can sustain that and the lifestyle is conducive to what they're trying to achieve, they're going to end up spiraling backwards, and if not fall further, because they're going to feel like a failure, they're going to feel like a letdown, they're going to develop learned hopelessness, they're going to experience a fixed mindset. We need to be understanding of who they are, where they've come from, where they're going, what they want to achieve, why they want to achieve those things, and really map out and explore these situations, these circumstances. Otherwise, you're going to develop a very, very poor relationship with the client, their relationship with you, their relationship with the fitness industry, with nutrition, with training, with lifestyle development, with physique development, with physical development, upskill development. All these things are going to have a very poor reflection on that person, or that person going to have a very poor reflection on them, because the way in which we coach them was just so ignorant and wrong. So I try my best to make sure that psychology is just as important to me at the forefront of our interactions, our experience, our coaching, our calls, check-ins, our feedbacks, as the programming reviews, as the nutrition reviews, the macro counts, the meal plans, all that jazz. It's not, and it's often I find this amongst a lot of the nutritional industry, is that these conversations that, nutrition's the bee's knees, it is the most important pyramid, it's a fundamental concept. Great. It is a very important concept. Does it trump psychology? Does it trump training? I don't think so. I don't think it does. I think they each have a different pyramid they operate on, but they're all of an equal distribution or equal hierarchy that have significant importance, a pyramid of importance up from the base. Now, they all interconnect and all play a vital role in how we achieve our results. But for some reason, we have this weird connotation at the moment that just because you've done X course, you're now certified to talk about psychology, talk about mindset, and you're now qualified to be able to do that, and therefore that's fine. And you're educated enough to talk about it. It's not a big deal. You don't need to go study it. You live the athlete lifestyle. You live the nutritional lifestyle. So therefore, why can't you just explain that to a client? Why don't they get that? And this is the problem for me, is because understanding psychology takes more than your perspective. When you understand communication skills and psychological communication skills, we're not talking to someone from the perspective we have, because we already know how to eat. We already know how to train. We already know how to work out 5-6 days a week. It doesn't make you a good coach. It doesn't make you a guru. It doesn't make you someone who's a mindset educator. Being able to put yourself in the shoes of someone who has never done these things, or is trying to do these things, or trying to build a lifestyle to make these things happen, and knowing how to progress those habits, progress those lifestyle changes, progress their mindset, their intensity, failure mapping, overcoming objections, being able to change cognitive reappraisal, how they self-talk and how they explore their own thoughts in the head, all change the experiences and the relationship that person is going to have with nutrition, with training, with physique development, with lifestyle goals, with relational goals, whatever. And it's important to consider that, because it's so much bigger than what people seem to think. And that is where I try to make psychology just as important at the fundamental pillars, or the fundamental elements of what make matters success for a client. And then the next thing that we would move on to from there, it would be our concept of education and community. So just as I've been saying here, when it comes to training, nutrition, psychology, I, as a coach, provide as much on each of those as I can to the individual client. And then I do my best to make sure that we're educating on those topics as well. So being able to provide education around all these things so that a person can leave, and this should be the end goal of every coach, but it's the goal of mine, it's the goal of Matter. Anyone that interacts with Matter Athletica should be able to step away from this interaction, from this experience, from this coaching service, from this downloadable content, from whatever it is, with a greater education than when they arrived. They should be able to know more on something than before they interacted with us, because that is going to lead to a greater interest in the client progressing, or the future person, or just a person in general, in progressing their life and doing something better than what they knew before they came to us. If it means we change how someone viewed nutrition, if we change how someone viewed self-talk and technical talk, if it changed how someone viewed training intensity, if it changed how someone viewed programming and volume markers, that education, any level that you interact with us, is going to lead to a better standard, a better expectation, a better general population, a better overall population than if we didn't exist. And that is why education is such a big part of us. And besides that, when someone knows the why, the how becomes easy. Bit of a paraphrase of the quote from Nietzsche, but when we understand the why, the how doesn't really, the how is not a problem. I can bear almost any how that objects to that situation. So when a client understands, or when someone understands, when you understand, when we understand why we're trying to do something, or why we're trying to achieve a specific result, or why this is happening and why this response is occurring, just saying, trust me, does not build any of that. It doesn't develop that, doesn't develop any intrinsic motivation, it doesn't develop any autonomy or competence, definitely doesn't build a relationship between the two of us, or between me and you when you're interacting with Matter at some extent. Being able to explain why things are happening, educating you on the topic of the concept, enables you to then know it and not look at me as the gatekeeper, or more of the person who's got all the answers behind closed doors. You have access to it. You get to understand these things, and we're providing as much information as possible so that you can sustain these results, keep them going, progress them, get them better, and make them better. That is overall what my goal is with Matter, and what I'm trying to achieve is that the standard of education needs to be lifted, and not at an expense that's going to cost you a small loan or a mortgage, or send you broke just to get a single bit of upskill. Some of these basic concepts, and it's taken a while for me to comprehend this, excuse me, but there are things in which I don't know, that when I outsource to someone, I would like to know more on, but I don't have the skill set or the time or the interest, and that's fine. But when it comes to the fundamental things like functionality of the human body and health and lifestyle and general mindset and the way you perceive life, having a fundamental understanding makes your life better. Now, I'm happy to outsource my car detailing to a mechanic, because I don't have the time to learn mechanics. If I wanted to, I would hope that my mechanic, or someone that I knew, was able to teach me a bit more and I could go and study. However, when it comes to these sort of things, I genuinely believe that everyone should have a greater understanding. Just like in school, when we didn't learn much about true economics, tax, financial planning, things like that. A lot of people say this is a problem in schooling at the moment, and I agree. It's the same thing when it comes to things like nutrition, training, programming, mindset, psychology. There isn't enough of an understanding or grasping of the concepts at a fundamental level. And so our goal is to try and educate you in a way that there is. You can find us at any point, at any location, at any system, or any part of our network, and you'll be able to engage with something that's going to educate you more on a point that you're trying to learn. There's not going to be something that we don't cover, or that we're trying not to cover. That's within our scope and realm of what we know. and there will be a degree of some sort of concept about it out, generally put out, because at the fundamental level, you're not a genius for having these tips. You're not a genius for having this knowledge. It doesn't make you a good coach because you know them. Knowing you should get 7-9 hours sleep doesn't make you a guru. Knowing that you should have more protein, knowing that you should probably cut out some calories, like saying calorie deficit, bro, like that doesn't make you an educator. It doesn't make you a good coach. It's just a very fundamental principle that everyone should know. And that's what we want to have. If you know these things and going to someone who doesn't know them, or someone who isn't able to explain them to you, you start to expect a greater degree of service, of coaching, of interaction. And so the worst case scenario, whether you buy from us or not, whether you buy from me, whether you engage with my services, if you've read something we've done, if you've used something we've done, if you've gone and researched it, if you've explored that thought more because of something we triggered, then that to me is a win and what we're trying to get out of our educational aspect to the business. And then that leads us to community, which is the last element of what we define as matters success. So community, again, when we look at the model of self-determination theory, we're trying to look at relatedness. The more related to a goal, the more related to an individual, the more related to a group that a person can feel, the more likely they are to develop an intrinsic relation to the outcome, to the goal, to succeeding, to striving, to doing more. So for us, the goal is to not keep everyone, especially in the online realm, it is hard to engage with people in a intimate interaction that builds closeness as a group, as a community, as a team. So what we try to do is make sure that we're providing a space or a place or a location or a system or a service that a community is built around every single person individually, getting results, achieving success, achieving what they're trying to do, striving towards the outcomes they have, enjoying and acknowledging the milestones that they achieve along the way, how much better they become along the way than when they started, who they are now versus who they were, being able to interact as a team, as a community, as a collective, so that in each individual win, in each individual situation, we are all celebrating overall success of each person. And then on top of that, you are then going to creating a dynamic where the like-minded individual is a part of the team. You don't have to have the same goals. You don't have to have the same outcomes. You don't have to have the same desires or wants or problems. You have to have the same anything. All that we are trying to do is build a place where like-minded, driven individuals is a part of the team and the community. And you get to achieve that. You get to have that by just simply striving to the goal you have. And the greater the goal you have, the greater that you are working towards it, the harder you're working towards it, the more interaction, more response you're going to get from the community, from each person, because we're all trying to push you to do that thing. And you're not going, when it comes to, slacking off, dropping off, you're able to see that everyone else is cheering you on, pushing you to achieve those things, try and get that result. So it creates a bond in which the general individual is looked at more as part of the team and the family than you are as just a number. And that to me is probably one of the greatest things we could possibly build in the desire to push people to be better, to do more, to reach bigger things. And if I can foster that in an environment where the community is just as much a part of the experience and the results as my individual coaching, then I think that's something pretty important, because it's showing that in a place where, in a realm where everyone can be very self-centered, narcissistic, arrogant, egotistical, that there are people who want you to succeed. And it doesn't have to be your friends, it doesn't have to be your family, but you may build friendships amongst this community because everyone wants you to succeed, and you start to be around more like-minded people. You start to be around more driven people, and you'll generally find, if you've read our ebook on psychology, it's the psychology of environment optimization, then the people that you hang around, the people that you are spending time with, are going to impact how you think, feel, your perspective, how you see the world, how you see life, how you see the things you're trying to do, what you think is possible. So the more you're around these driven people, the more you're able to do, more you're able to achieve, succeed, get reinforced, revoked that what you're doing is right, and that you're okay to do these things, and being driven is not a bad thing, or having goals and physique goals and self-progression goals is not narcissistic or egotistical or arrogant. Having those people around you support that and build that environment, build that idea, build that mindset for you is a great way to further, again, build more intrinsic motivation, sustain the travel, sustain the road, sustain the drive, so that the outcome and the destination is reachable and is more likely to be achieved, and you're going to be supported by other people doing the same thing. And that is why we look at psychology, we look at education, and we look at community as such big fundamental elements to the overall success of a Matter client, of the Matter business, of a Matter brand, of everything that we're trying to do. Along with training and nutrition, those 5 elements make up a large part of what we call the 5 elements of Matter's client success. And each one of those has just as much importance and significance to the overall result of the person as the one next to them. And they are not, it's not tapered in a pyramid of importance. It is layered in a way that we think that each one of those contributes and has an equal role in the overall outcome, because they're so important in what we're trying to do. So that is just a bit of a wrap on kind of how we work and kind of how we do the things we do, and why they're so important to us and why we think they're so important to the overall outcome of you as an individual, as well as part of the team. That will do us for this episode of the week. I think that's covered a bit much there. Plenty to wrap your head around and sort of explore. If you have any questions, any queries, any coaching concerns or ideas, please do not hesitate to reach out or book use the inquiry link on our website. Book in the free consult on my bio in Instagram, or in my bio on Instagram. Reach out and we can have a chat and get you booked in. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode, and I'll chat to you again later.